with Ezekiel Elliott. And the news that the NFL has suspended this guy for 6 games, a suspension, by the way, that he can appeal, and that the general way that the NFL goes about this is that usually players who appeal and have some kind of merit on their side get their penalty reduced by half. Typically, that's usually been the going rate of suspensions. But the NFL, of course, can decline appeals, as the person who suspends you is also the person who you appeal, right? Roger Goodell being both guys in this particular instance, which I find usually to be unethical, but probably helpful in this case. If Ezekiel Elliott is guilty of what he is alleged to have done in terms of the violence against his ex-girlfriend in a domestic abuse case that began investigation last year. Now, my thing about Ezekiel Elliott is this, which is he's had a number of run-ins since then, and I think that the league should just allow him to remain suspended, just to be safe. Just to be safe. Because you have to suspend guys, I believe, for a number of games that hurts. How else is that a punishment if you don't suspend people for a number of games that actually bothers them? It doesn't make any sense. You've got to suspend them for a number of games that actually hurts, right? Like either because it's hitting them in the paycheck or they want to be out there supporting their team. But guess what? You're going to have to make the kinds of decisions that make you capable of being out there with your teammates. Football, for the last time, is a privilege, not a right. You don't have the right to play football. Nobody has the right to play football. Okay? And so if the NFL believes that Ezekiel Elliott, based on the evidence, based on the police photographs, which I saw and are not good, based on the police report, based on witnesses and things of that nature, the NFL doesn't need the due process that the courts need. If the NFL believes Ezekiel Elliott did it, then they ought to suspend him. And if they believe that he did it to the tune of 6 games worth of abuse, which I still feel like you can't really put a grade on this, right? But then they ought to suspend him for all 6 games. Don't reduce it down to 3. But that we do get into tenuous territory where we say, like, 6 games, this is what it is worth in terms of a punishment for domestic violence. And the reason why that gets tricky is because when someone gets suspended for some other reasons, or they get suspended because they were berating a referee, or they get suspended because of drug use, if someone gets suspended 4 games because of drug use, then what you're essentially saying is domestic violence is only 2 games worth a suspension more than drug use. And it's the equivocation there is where we get into dangerous territory, and I don't particularly like it. But I also understand, like, what else is the NFL supposed to do? Because either they allow for some level of nuance or some level of equivocation, or you just suspend guys for the entire season outright, which also doesn't seem fair. I'm not going to come up with a solution for what the NFL should do there. I'm just saying they need to be consistent in whatever it is that they're saying they're going to do. If a guy is suspended 6 games and then he appeals, okay, if you believe him to actually be guilty, then his appeal shouldn't really matter. Like, his appeal shouldn't allow for him to just have less games. The appeal should allow for the possibility of him having less games, because this hurts the Dallas Cowboys and this hurts Ezekiel Elliott. And that's the point of the punishment, that 6 games is almost half an NFL season. And if you are the Dallas Cowboys and you are supposed to be responsible for keeping Ezekiel Elliott in check, then guess what? You're going to have to figure out how to keep Ezekiel Elliott in check. This is not new to the Dallas Cowboys, by the way, who have a team of people whose job it is to literally follow their wide receiver Des Bryant around and make sure that he doesn't get into any kind of trouble. Like, if you already have that protocol, go ahead and apply it to Ezekiel Elliott. Basically, what we're essentially saying here for Ezekiel Elliott is you need to get your life together. But you're also saying to the Dallas Cowboys, hey, come get your mans. Come get your guy. And you figure out how to make this work. Either you figure it out or we will. And yeah, that's a huge blow to the Cowboys because they are a contender. They're a Super Bowl contending team. second year of Dak Prescott, second year of Ezekiel Elliott. Almost all of your best players are incredibly, incredibly young. You've got the best offensive line in football. Not that other running backs were able to take advantage of the best offensive line in football, which tells you that you need Ezekiel Elliott. He may be your best player if Dak Prescott isn't. And of course, if you're the Cowboys, you'd like to have him. So get your guy together. I don't know what you have to tell him to keep him out of trouble. I don't know if you have to put him on a curfew, if you have to put him on lockdown, if you have to have a bunch of guys follow him to make sure that he's not allegedly punching people in the face or allegedly showing lady parts to the world via lifting up their shirt when they do not want that, which I have to say over and over again is in fact sexual assault. Whatever it is that the Dallas Cowboys feel that they need to do to Ezekiel Elliott, to this grown man that they are paying millions of dollars to carry a football, whatever it is that they need to do, they need to figure out how to handle it. Okay? Jerry Jones and Ezekiel Elliott appealing the suspension should not make a difference. Not for this. You either take this hard stance against domestic violence or you don't. Like, there's not a middle ground here. And I find very often that they don't. That the football, that the money that you can make from the football does not seem to outweigh the moral decisions. We see it time and time again. No. The decisions about the money you can make in football outweigh decisions when it makes people uncomfortable, like Colin Kaepernick makes people uncomfortable, but it doesn't make people uncomfortable the way that a person hitting a woman should make people uncomfortable. And that kind of makes me a little bit sad on that note, just because, the state of our mindset is we'd rather a guy not play games for kneeling during the national anthem than a guy who put his hands on a woman. Like that says way too much. It speaks volumes, because when guys have gotten into these kinds of trouble on the professional level, on the college level, it hasn't stopped people from going to the games. It hasn't said to anybody, hey, maybe suspend that guy. Maybe don't play that guy. Maybe don't play that guy. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. And I'll give you an example of how this works out on the college level, which is Antonio Callaway is caught up in yet another Title IX investigation. Antonio Callaway is a wide receiver for the Florida Gators. He is, according to many, their best skill position player. And in all likelihood, despite the fact that he is entrenched in this Title IX investigation, Antonio Callaway will probably wind up playing because he was being investigated last year. He was suspended through practice all through the fall. And then when the season started, he was fully reinstated to play next season. And I think that universities double down on the fact that these investigations take years. For instance, or if you recall, Jameis Winston, who is now the quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? Like not even in college anymore, long, long gone from his last situation. Jameis Winston was being investigated for a Title IX. He had a Title IX investigation on him. And that investigation just now really began. And Jameis Winston's not in college. No one can touch Jameis Winston for that past crime. It's unlikely that the NFL would suspend him for a crime that he committed in the past. And really only Florida State would have to pay for it. And Florida State got a national title out of Jameis Winston. And so far as the risk reward goes, they ended up winning it. And it didn't stop anybody from supporting Jameis. There was some tweets about it, but that's about as far as that went. It didn't stop anybody from going to see Florida State games. And now I'm looking at Florida, and I'm looking at Antonio Callaway in a similar situation. And in all likelihood, because there's nothing stopping them from doing this, Antonio Callaway will play this season. And you're Florida, you're in a heated battle in the SEC East, which we'll talk about later in the show in terms of everybody's worst case, best case scenario for winning the SEC, right? And I'm only going to go through the teams that I find to be viable. But Florida is one of the teams that I find to be viable and would certainly love to have Antonio Callaway because they finally gotten their quarterback situation in check, and you'd love to have that guy to throw the ball to. But that guy's involved in a Title IX investigation. And so at some level, it does seem proper to go, let's not play this guy this season. But of course, Florida's not going to do that because when you look at how Florida handled this thing entirely, at every twist and turn, it seemed that Florida found a way to make sure that Antonio Callaway would be able to play. Whether or not there was a hearing, a school hearing, a Title IX hearing, in which the school hired one of their own boosters to overlook the case. The victim of the case boycotted the hearing in 2016 because the booster obviously doesn't have any partiality. He's heavily involved in the school. And that same booster would clear Antonio Callaway of any wrongdoing. Right? And the reason why I think that these systems need to be more separated is because, not unlike the NFL and Ezekiel Elliott, where that guy, if you can't hurt him, if you can't get your hands on him and get him to figure out what he's doing wrong, get your hands on the team. Okay? Because last year, Antonio Callaway for Florida had 1,399 receiving yards and 12 touchdowns, which is a brilliant season. You need to hit Florida where it hurts if you want them to handle these situations in the future, because you can't get your hands on Antonio Callaway. By the time this investigation truly and honestly gets going, Antonio Callaway is going to be in the NFL for a year or two. You can't get your hands on Antonio Callaway. You need to send a message to the Florida Gators. Come get your mans. Get your guy together. Get him, because you're going to miss that production, okay? And maybe it does seem wrong that in order to get a team to prioritize the female students on their campus and the safety of the female students on their campus, you're going to have to go at what their possible offensive production might end up dropping to if they lose a guy. But I don't care how you do it. You've got to make sure that those students feel safe, right? Like, you've got to make sure that they feel safe. If someone had done that at Baylor, the entire Baylor situation would have been different, but there were a number of students on that Baylor campus that did not feel safe because the football players were walking around basically committing sexual crimes with impunity. That is what you call a rape culture. That's how you get there. That's how you get there. Right? Like, there is a dystopian future show. It's out on Hulu, I think. It's called The Handmaid's Tale. And when you watch the show starts and it doesn't explain anything, right? It doesn't explain how you get to that future. But in the future, women's rights are incredibly restricted and boxed in and caged in. And you're left to be left to imagine how it is that you could wind up in an America that looks like that. That's how you wind up in an America that looks like that. You simply ignore the rights of women. Like, but your female students don't deserve to feel safe on a campus because you've just got football players that you really need to get you 12 touchdowns a season? Like, that's crazy. That's crazy, and that's alarming. And if the school won't do it, like, I'm not asking the school to figure its own interests against morality. I think we've seen time and time again that college campuses will find a way to make their own interests come out on top. I'm not asking that the schools do it. I'm asking that the NCAA do it. I'm asking that the NCAA come down on schools. Don't leave it up to the school to suspend a guy for a Title IX investigation. Don't leave it up to the school to hold a hearing. It's not in their best interest to suspend a really good player. It's hard to ask people to police themselves. Right? Like, it's hard to get employees to work if the boss isn't going to say anything, right? At this station, I've had my boss yell at me. Why? Because he wants me to work. It's in his best interest for me to work very, very hard. Right? These organizations, it's not in their best interest to have a guy suspended, especially a guy as talented as Antonio Callaway. It's not. So don't leave it up to them. That's the most bizarre thing in this entire process, in this entire system. Don't leave it up to them. The only issue is, can I trust the NCAA to do it? Right? The NCAA is a little bit more removed. And when the NCAA does decide to arrive and investigate things, they really do decide to arrive and investigate things, as we're seeing with Ole Miss. But I saw the NCAA, and I read this on Deadspin earlier, but I found the press release. They linked to it. The NCAA put out a press release announcing that it had adopted a new sexual violence policy, complete with a write-up by the Associated Press, and it's kind of sad, this policy, okay? Here's what the press release states. It starts by saying that coaches, college athletes, and athletic administrators are required to complete education each year in sexual violence prevention, which is not new. You are already required to do that. Okay? When the Clery Act got passed a few years back, the law covering campus safety, institutions were supposed to provide incoming students and new employees with primary prevention and awareness programs. They were already supposed to be doing that, right? And then when you read further in the press release, it reads, as part of the new policy, leaders on each NCAA campus, the school president, the chancellor, the athletic director, the Title IX coordinator must attest annually that coaches, athletic administrations, student athletes were educated in sexual violence prevention, which is just them rewording the last paragraph. This is weak. This is really weak. And this is the final piece from the press release. The school's policy regarding sexual violence prevention and education, plus the name and contact information for the campus Title IX coordinator, are readily available in the athletics department and are distributed to student athletes, which is, again, something that all schools were required to do already. I remember when I was at Chat State and at UTC, we all had to fill out some Title IX forms to say, look, we understand how sexual harassment works, what sexual assault looks like, where we can contact someone if it happens to us, what would happen to us if we ever did it to somebody else. All of these things are already required. Everybody everywhere already requires this. It's not new, and yet the NCAA thinks they're fooling somebody. I don't know who, but they think they're fooling somebody by peddling this off as some kind of new information. They were already required to do that. If you read a letter that the NCAA put out back in 2011, this is the same information that it said. It said that they had to explain what constitutes sexual harassment and violence. They had to do what they had to do if a student had been a victim of sexual harassment or violence. The contact information for counseling and victim services on or off school grounds, how to file a complaint, and how to contact the school's Title IX coordinator, right? Everybody's supposed to know who their Title IX coordinator is. You're supposed to annually test the coaches and the athletes. This is not new, and the NCAA peddling this off as new seems to be something that they're trying to do, and I'm going to speculate here, and it is going to be a bit of wild, aimless speculation, but it would seem to me that the NCAA is attempting to say, hey, no, look, we do care about this stuff. Don't come after us. Come after the schools. Here, look, here are new revamped rules, right? Here's our revamped rules. Look at it. And it's going to throw us off the trail, and we're not going to be as critical of the NCAA. We're going to be critical of these schools that are supposed to be following the rules. We're supposed to be critical of the Baylors and the Floridas and so on. Except they were already supposed to be following those rules. So if those schools aren't following the rules, then the NC2A really only has one action left. And that action is to take the disciplinary side of this thing into their own hands. I don't want the NCAA involved in every little thing. I don't want them in everybody's business investigating everything all the time. I think that that's not necessarily a valuable use of their resources, and it does get to be very petty and sort of autocratic for them to do that. But here's what I would like from the NCAA. When it involves sexual violence, when the card seems stacked against the victim, I would like the NCAA, who cares so much about the student athlete and the student experience, to probably come in and protect the students like they're supposed to. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Going to talk a little bit more about the Chattanooga Eagles. They've got a game coming up this Saturday. They're still in the playoffs, hanging tough. Win this one, I believe they go to the championship game. So we're looking forward to watching them this week, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it next.
3, 2, Chattanooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's news now.
Chattanooga cops after a sharp-dressed man who they say robbed a convenience store in Lookout Valley early Thursday morning. Surveillance camera photos capture a black man wearing a blue or white dress shirt, black pants, robbing a Kangaroo Express on Browns Ferry Road. The police say they'd love to meet him and have a bit of a chat. Chattanooga cops say they found 2 stashes of cash and drugs in a location where a man accused of murder was staying. William Howard Wright, who's 18, is accused in a double murder case along with a 17-year-old juvenile, which 2 bodies were found inside of a cemetery. The police say they found an AR-15, drugs, baggies, and drug paraphernalia, along with a large stash of cash where they believe one of the suspects was staying. Back in June, Desmond Clay was killed, and now in August, an arrest has been made. 20-year-old Desmond Trammell, charged with criminal homicide among other charges, accused of killing Clay on Wilcox Boulevard. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Any spotty showers will quickly diminish through your nighttime. Muggy overnight, low 70 to 72. For your weekend, not bad, partly sunny. A nice late afternoon shower storm popping up. Not as much so on Sunday, a little drier and warmer with highs into the upper 80s. McBriar Realty is now Real Living Southern Realty, serving the entire tri-state area. Find your dream home now with Real Living Southern Realty. For their complete listings and more, rlsouthernrealty.com. And I'm Sports 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr. On Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Jim lost 84 pounds of fat in just 3 months. 84 pounds of fat in just 3 months without a single powdered meal or shake, no diet pills, no gimmicks. He is a cardiac nurse, and he knew that if he didn't do something, he would be the next one laying on the table getting stents in his heart. RSVP now to join us for our free health and wellness seminar at 240-440-1379. This will be our only seminar in Chattanooga, 240-440-1379.
Hi, this is Eric Pelton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. EJ Pelton Company, 332-3339.
This is Thomas DeMoss with Keller Williams Realty. I am a realtor in Chattanooga. We list and sell homes, work with buyers, work with home sellers. I have been involved in real estate for over 10 years. My background is as a real estate investor. That is what I bring to the table, is that real estate investor mindset. My job is to help you sell your house for the most money, employing the best marketing strategy and walking you through what can be a rather stressful process. So we are encouraging people who are on the fence or even thought about selling their house to give us a call. There's no obligation. We're just here to kind of have a conversation, let people know what the process is like, what the market is like, what values they can expect to receive. We work with buyers as well. I also have a buyer's agent that works exclusively with my buyers because we want to give our clients as much attention as we can. My cell phone number is 423-364-0028. Our website is northriverpropertygroup.com. That's northriverpropertygroup.com. We'd love for you guys to call us.
I have the best steak selection in town. The name of the business is Don's Meat Shop, and I'm Donnie Raines. Just ask for Donnie. I make over 20 different types of sausages. Most of them are great for grilling. We have the best selection, best quality. We have the hard-to-find items. Don's Meat Shop.
Hi, I'm David Crockett, and I'm here with David Tulis, and we're having a little discussion over who's the number one Nooga centrist. If you want to keep up with free market ideas, then read Nooganomics.com. David Tulis, the blogger with the biggest pen.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree? Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM, and 95.3 HD4. News, talk, sports. Nooga Radio.
You're listening to AM 1240 and 92.7 FM, Clutch with Keon Rose here on Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com. And The Chattanooga Eagles play tomorrow. They play at 7:30 at Central High School in the semifinals and the conference championship of the GDFL. So they win this one, and they are going to get an opportunity to play for a title here, which was their goal all along. And I remember interviewing the Eagles earlier this season, before the season began, and they've had an incredible season. It's been an amazing run. Their players have a ton of heart, and look, it's very exciting to go out there and just watch some live football. It's the end of the summer. Football, this is when football is starting to matter, but we're still in that moment where we've got a lot of college football, and it's just practices and scrimmages. And then we also are getting to that point where there seems to be a very large amount of preseason games. And I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I don't really mess with preseason games like that. I don't. I look at the stats to see what my starters did. I didn't watch any preseason football games yesterday. I just did not care enough. I watched Hard Knocks yesterday. I watched the Buccaneers Hard Knocks that I'd missed on Wednesday. Didn't really see the need to sit down and watch just preseason football. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And my buddy Patrick McCoon, who writes for the Cleveland Daily Banner, he was tweeting the whole night about he was excited about everything. Patrick loves football. I love football too, but I'm not going to sit down and watch preseason. I just don't have it in my soul to just sit down and spend time watching a thing that I know doesn't mean anything. I might watch that third preseason game because that's the one where it's like, oh, this is the dress rehearsal, right? This is the one where the starters play maybe a quarter, maybe a half, depending on who your team is. And then that's it. You know, I'm not too big into just sitting down watching preseason generally, unless I had like the number 1 or number 2 overall pick and I want to see what that guy looks like. So I did watch some of the highlights today, but I didn't really get into it. But when you go watch the GDFL at this point in the year, this is their playoffs. They're a summer football league. And the Chattanooga Eagles have done, I thought, an amazing job. They've won some very close games, some very tough battles, at least from what I have seen. They've also beaten the brakes off of some people too. So you never know what you're going to get when you go to an Eagles game. You can watch a blowout. You can end up watching a close game. But I just think that the coaches do a tremendous job of that game, managing the clock, managing those situations where you just have to hang on, where the momentum is swinging back and forth. And it's fun. It gets your heart racing. It's a family environment too. There's lots of parents. There's lots of kids. You can see the little kids down by the fence throwing the football back and forth. So I recommend that you get out there. The game starts at 7:30. I would get there around 7, right? I would get there around 7 and make sure you pick a seat because people know all the nice spots to sit in. And if you want to sit in a nice spot like the 50-yard line, kind of middle of the stands area, just so you can get a nice, good, solid view of the entire field, I would show up a little bit earlier than 7:30, but 7:30 you could show up and stop by and watch the game. These games are very, very high quality, and I have enjoyed every time going out there to watch. And also, Kobe Copeland, who is the quarterback, I like watching him play, man. He's got a tremendous touch on the football. It's huge. I'm a big fan of watching that guy play football. So I look forward to seeing you guys out there. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. I was thinking about, this week I've been thinking about the SEC and its place among the other Power 5 conferences, because it's been more or less a foregone conclusion that the SEC, as of last season, was just written off as a terrible conference of football, despite the fact that last season was probably the first season you could say that the SEC had truly declined. Because I remember when the college football playoff first started, there was an idea that, boy, all these SEC college football teams are going to do one of two things. Either they're going to dominate the playoff and everyone's going to be in the playoff, or they're going to cannibalize each other and they're not going to all make it into the playoff because somebody has to lose out, right? And ultimately that happened in year one, and I think the SEC declined last year. Now, people believe that there's some kind of coaching disparity between the SEC and all these other conferences. Don't buy the hype there. I think that the SEC coaches are fine. What I do believe ultimately is this. I believe that the SEC had a quarterback crisis last year, more so than a coaching crisis. A quarterback crisis, by the way, that has been rectified on some level when you look at what Florida's been able to do, when you look at what Georgia has in Jacob Eason going into his second season, when you look at Auburn bringing in a Jarrett Stidham, when you look at Nick Fitzgerald and his development at Miss State, and Shea Patterson over at Ole Miss. Even though Ole Miss isn't going to be any good, I would recommend watching Ole Miss and seeing what it is that their offense is capable of doing because of Shea Patterson. That guy's legit. Austin Allen over in Arkansas, even though Arkansas underachieves defensively, cannot stop a soul in the second half of a football game. Austin Allen is the truth. So when I watch the SEC and I watch the quarterback situations, I'm not watching a conference that's a very bad conference. And who is supposed to be better? Who's supposed to be better than the SEC, right? We know it's not the Big 12. We can end that conversation right there. There isn't a single person who is a fan of the Big 12 that is delusional enough to believe that their team is somehow better, right? I say this as a fan of a Big 12 team. I root for Texas. It's been a rough life these last 4 or 5 years, okay? I understand that. I have 2 eyes, and I see my team underachieve. I get it. You don't have to tell me. But there is this notion that the ACC and the Pac-12 and all of these schools are better. All these conferences are better than the SEC. And I don't buy it. I simply do not buy it. Now, here's the thing. I'm not saying they're worse. I'm saying they're all in a nice, wonderful group together. Here's where I don't buy the Pac-12 being better than the SEC. The Pac-12 plays 9 conference games, which means that the sample size of non-conference games for the Pac-12 tends to be relatively small, right? You're looking at USC. Let's take a look at the USC Trojans. Southern California. This is USC's 2 non-conference games. They play Texas and they play Notre Dame. Now, I don't know about Texas. I know Notre Dame's not going to be very good. Texas might be okay. But Texas, I think at best this season, is okay. You're playing a non-conference schedule involving 2 teams that ranges from not very good to okay. That's problematic. If we're going to be propping up your conference and the greatness of your conference based on how well you play each other inside your conference, that doesn't make any sense, right? Because one of the things that the committee does look at when they're trying to pick who goes to the college football playoff is this non-conference stuff. We're trying to get to some of these non-conference games and figure these games out. And what you're telling me is that Washington, who I thought did a very good job of holding their own against Alabama last year, but you play Rutgers. Rutgers is your non-conference Power 5 team that you play. How does that make you good? They're Rutgers. They're horrible. Right? And we already talked about the Big Ten, which is if you're going to say that the SEC is one school with 2 schools who can challenge, right? Alabama's like the best school in the SEC. And then Auburn and LSU, depending on how their seasons go, can challenge Alabama. Then the Big Ten is just 2 schools with 1 school who can challenge, right? It's just Ohio State and Penn State up there with Michigan who can challenge. I don't believe in any of those other Big Ten schools, right? And I like Wisconsin, they're nice. And I like Iowa, they're nice. But these schools aren't brilliant. Like, these schools aren't title contenders either, right? And I have trouble believing that the gap between Wisconsin and Miss State is enormous when you consider Dan Mullen's track record. And I have trouble believing the gap between LSU and Iowa is enormous. Actually, I do think it's enormous, but I think it's enormous in favor of LSU, right? The Big Ten, for all it's worth, is 2 teams that can really contend and 1 team who can challenge. And when you look at the ACC, this supposed to be superior because they beat Alabama with Clemson in the title game, and then Clemson was there before, and Florida State and Jimbo Fisher have managed to win one in the last 5 years. You're supposed to be looking at the ACC, the conference that has usurped the SEC. When you look at the coaches' top 25, though, what do you see? You see 2 ACC teams, and it's Clemson and it's Florida State. There's 4 SEC teams in the top 25 of the coaches poll, right? And I trust the coaches more than I trust most people. There is no such thing as a perfect poll. But they believe Tennessee's a top 25 team. They believe Georgia's a top 25 team. They believe LSU's a top 25 team. They believe Auburn's a top 25 team. They believe Alabama's a top 25 team. They're all there. Every single one. Like, this is the top 25 that they believe the SEC to be very deep. And I'm not using this to say, well, look, the SEC is the best conference in college football. But there's a false narrative going on that the gap between the SEC and the Pac-12 is a very large gap. And then there's a gap between the Big Ten that's a very large gap. And then there's a gap between the ACC that's a very large gap. Now, everybody's got a large gap from the Big 12, but that's not really saying much. They don't play defense over there. But I'm saying you could pretty much throw the Pac-12, the SEC, the ACC, and the Big Ten all in a pot together. A lot about these conferences resemble each other. I will say that the Pac-12 is the deepest conference, I think. But it's hard to tell what that means when you don't play very many non-conference games. When you play 1 or 2 non-conference games a year, and the teams that are showing up on your schedule look like Texas, look like Notre Dame, look like Rutgers. That's a mess. I mean, that's distinctly problematic for your narrative. And I have a huge problem with it. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. It's just this idea that the SEC stinks, and you've got to figure out a way to explain how it is that a lot of great quarterbacks are in this conference right now, right? I've heard the talk about, well, look how many coaches in the SEC are on the hot seat. Who? Because I heard Jason McIntyre of USA Today say that Dan Mullen was on the hot seat. And at which point now I have to just lose all credibility with Jason McIntyre, because then you don't know what you're talking about. That guy's been the best thing for Miss State in just ever. He takes 2- and 3-star guys and he turns them into Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott was a 3-star. You know what I mean? Like, he's not recruiting 5-stars, but they win 10 games a year in the SEC West. I just have huge problems. It's very problematic. Who's on the hot seat besides Kevin Sumlin? Right? Kirby Smart could be in a little bit of trouble after this year, but I wouldn't say he's on the hot seat. Butch Jones could be in some trouble after this year, but I wouldn't say he's on the hot seat. No. Like, talk to people over in Tennessee. Talk to them. In Knoxville. I mean, there's nobody out there that believes that Butch Jones is actually on the hot seat this year. Jim McElwain's not on the hot seat. Malzahn could be on the hot seat if things go terribly, and we'll get into that in this show in the second hour. But who's actually on the hot seat? Like, right now, could be fired partway through the season. It's not Ed Orgeron. Who is it? Where are all of these SEC coaches that could be fired at any moment? I don't see it. I just don't see it. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240, 92.7 FM. So I have a game on Georgia's schedule that is interesting. The Miami game, Georgia Tech, that when they play Miami, October 12th. And there's going to be a few new inductees into the University of Miami Ring of Honor, which includes Michael Irvin, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Warren Sapp, Sean Taylor. And I thought to myself, if you had a Ring of Honor with all the best players from your school's history, You would think that those guys would already be in the Ring of Honor, no? Michael Irvin, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Warren Sapp, Sean Taylor. Those guys should be in the Ring of Honor already. And I was wondering why that was, that these guys are not already in the Ring of Honor. And that's when I realized the University of Miami just churns out talent. Oops, I forgot that the University of Miami just pretty much churns out talent and does nothing else. Because these are the 1997 inductees for their Ring of Honor. Jim Dooley, Ted Hendricks, George Mira, Vinny Testaverde. Here's 99. Otis Anderson, Don Bosler, Bernie Kosar, Burgess Owens. Here's 08. Edgerrin James, Jim Kelly, Cortez Kennedy, Jim Otto, and Gino Torretta. Here's 2009. Bernie Blades, Eddie Dunn, Steve Walsh. Here's 2014. Jerome Brown and Russell Maryland. Man, the University of Miami, their Ring of Honor isn't a Ring of Honor. That's just a Hall of Fame. That's just a Hall of Fame at this point, right? Like you have this many guys to choose from. Like the reason why you can't get Michael Irvin, Warren Sapp, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, and Sean Taylor in is because there's a backlog of really good guys that have to be in your Ring of Honor. Like that's a Hall of Fame. Edgerrin James and Vinny Testaverde and Bernie Kosar. I mean, those are some of the greatest college football players of all time. Yeah, I can see a little bit of a backlog there. I can imagine a world where that's difficult. I think what's more impressive is that all of these guys weren't just great college players. Irvin, Lewis, Reed, Sapp, and Taylor. These guys were great pros, too. Every single one of them. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy how good they are. Anyway, I just thought that was fascinating. I saw the Georgia Tech schedule and the Ring of Honor thing came up, and I looked at, who's going to be in it? Oh, basically some of the best football players I've ever seen in my life. Granted, I'm 27 years old, so I haven't seen everybody. But all of these guys played in my life, and I watched them all, so I feel pretty good about that. I'm also feeling fairly old, but I feel pretty good about that. So there was a report that Hugh Freeze threatened to have a reporter arrested for questions about Barney Farrar. Barney Farrar being a coach that was dismissed by Ole Miss during the NCAA investigation that began. When it began, Barney Farrar was the guy that Ole Miss put in the middle of it. And Barney Farrar was essentially the scapegoat for a lot of their problems, right? Anything that they didn't really blame on Houston Nutt, they blamed on Barney Farrar. They said that Barney Farrar was this sort of lone rogue agent that was just doing whatever it was that he wanted, and most of the infractions were him. So the Washington Post visited Hugh Freeze at his home, along with some other newspapers, but the Post specifically had a reporter ask Hugh Freeze about Farrar. When Freeze declined the comment, he also threatened to have the reporter arrested. For the story on Farrar, Ole Miss athletic director Ross Bjork also did not comment on it as well. But the fact that they're not commenting on it is not surprising, right? They're not trying to implicate themselves further in anything than they've needed to. But there's something that looks particularly guilty about you threatening to have a human being arrested over trying to mention the guy's name, as opposed to saying, I decline to comment. I don't want to talk about it at this time. There's an investigation in which he is heavily involved, and I don't want to say anything that I shouldn't say. You could say any number of things. When you threaten to have someone arrested, fair or not fair, you look particularly guilty in that moment. And there's nothing we can do about how guilty you look. Right? Because that's not just my opinion. That is just generally everyone's opinion. That's generally the opinion of people who see these situations and go, wow, that's really guilty. It's like if I was sitting at home, right? And there was some food in the fridge, and my girlfriend was like, please don't eat my food. And then I ate her food, and then she came home, and then she was like, hi. And I said, I didn't eat the food in your fridge. That's particularly guilty looking of me to offer to her that I did not eat the food in her fridge. That makes me look very, very guilty. That makes me look very, very guilty. When someone asks you a question and you decline, that doesn't make you look guilty. When you threaten to have them arrested, that tends to make you look fairly guilty. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Got some more stories to get into today, including the worst case scenario of every contending SEC team. Next.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
You've been in a wreck.
756-6400.
You've been wrongfully fired.
756-6400.
A turkey is suing you out of the blue.
756-6400.
Confused about a business startup?
756-6400.
That's the number for you. 756-6400. Right here, right now, Chattanooga. Call now. Top flight legal help awaits. Get biz advice now. Representation to fight for your right. What are you waiting for? That's 756-6400. Don't sit on your rights. You've got remedies. Turn your tragedy into cash. You've got the solution from estate planning all the way to probate. Act now. Top attorneys in Chattanooga are waiting to help you get relief. Act now. No out of pocket. You don't pay a dime until we win. So win with us.
756-6400.
Call now. Top flight legal help awaits. What are you waiting for? That's 756-6400. Turn your tragedy into cash. Act now. No out of pocket. You don't pay a dime until we win. So win with us.
756-6400.
756-6400.
I'm Thomas DeMoss, and we've got the cash. We will buy your house today. Need to sell your house? We want to buy your house, and we have the cash to do it. Call me now, 423-834-7321. That's 423-834-7321. We've been buying houses in the Chattanooga market for 10 years. We are local, and we can help. There's no obligations, only solutions. iBuyChattanoogaHouses.com. I'm Thomas DeMoss, and we've got the cash.
Does your business have enough clients? Are you confused about how to stand out in today's saturated social media market? Do you feel lost trying to navigate the maze of marketing channels which are necessary in today's marketplace? Are you fed up with spending your time and money on employees who don't perform and marketing strategies that don't produce? Then you need Cindy's Choice. Cindy will solve your marketing problems with their innovative shared marketing management concept that will allow your business to have the benefits of a full-time employee that is actually out building relationships in the community on behalf of your brand. Cindy's low monthly rate includes advertising, employee management, public relations, and creative marketing strategies that produce. Cindy can bring this all to you at a rate lower than most advertising campaigns and for much less than the cost of hiring a marketing employee. Cindy's Choice is your trusted source, and Cindy will manage it all for you.
Hi, I'm Cindy. I focus on the prospects so you can focus on the projects. Call me at 423-661-4445. That's 423-661-4445. So you can become Cindy's Choice.
And now to our reporter in the field.
We asked Ray at Ray's Plumbing what's important for homeowners to know.
Some field line systems can cost upwards of $10,000. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road. I would definitely recommend everybody with a septic that is not on county or city sewer to have an inspection done by a qualified professional. It'd be great if nobody did inspections on them for all plumbing companies. That's what we do to make a living. Not to scare anyone, but it should be in the back of your mind. The danger is a field line failing and costing thousands upon thousands of dollars and tearing your yard up. By preventative maintenance, you're saving yourself a large headache that may displace yourself and your family. That happens more often than you think. The waste is designed to stay in the tank, and that waste will build up over time. Even with treatment, we have to help that waste break down. Ultimately, preventative maintenance is the key that will keep you from spending $5,000 to $10,000 on replacing your septic system. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road.
Call Ray at Ray's Plumbing, 421-6341, 421-6341.
Essential oils are an overlooked benefit. They're a remedy for allergies, sinuses, headaches, and sleep problems. Aches and pains? Let me help you live a better life. Hi, Loretta Lynn here. It's a free consult. Call me today. Look, I'll even give you a free bottle of essential oil. 423-605-4719. Loretta Lynn's Essential Oils. They've been around for thousands of years. They can even be an alternative to pesticides in your garden. Call today. That's 423-605-4719 and take control of your health.
Hi, Hi, this is Nadia behind the green door. You've had ice cream and you've had shaved ice, but have you had snow cream? It is amazing. It's light, airy, fruity snowflakes melting on your tongue. You need to come and see us. Highway 58, green door next to Hardee's.
My name's Trevor Ashley. I'm an attorney here with the law firm McCoon, Williams, Ashley, and Stanley. We have a show on Nooga Radio called Legal Bites, where we discuss legal topics of interest to our listeners: estate planning, business formation, and business transactions. Legal Bites, 11 a.m. on Wednesday.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree? Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM, and 95.3 HD4. News, talk, sports. Nooga Radio.
Charge! Get back there, you dang Yankee! Great horny toads, I'm up north. Gotta burn my boots. They touched Yankee soil. Lay down your arms and step forward, Yankee.
What's the hassle, schmassel?
My orders from General Lee is to hold the Macy-Dixie line, and no Yankees are crossing it.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
It is Eric Jones hard into the outside wall, and they are still 3 and 4 wide. It looks like we're racing at Talladega.
Caution flag is out. It looked like Denny Hamlin was trying to get by Ricky Stenhouse. Got into the back of Ricky at the line. Man, that's a close one. Matt Kenseth wins stage 1.
Green checkered flag is out, and Brad Keselowski has won stage 2.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. into the wall. That will bring out the caution. Caution waving once again. And again, it's Dale Earnhardt Jr. involved.
Oh, trouble. Ty Dillon has gotten turned to the inside of the racetrack, and Clint Boyer has just nailed him.
Matt Kenseth falling back. The field storming by. Something wrong. Now we see sparks from Kenseth's Toyota.
Larson chops him off. Coming off turn number 2. Nose to tail. Now it's Logano to the high side in 3.
Joey Logano, a winner here at the Richmond International Raceway.
Here at Live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR WBLZ HD480, W224AZ Chattanooga, WSDT Sunny Daisy Chattanooga.
What to do about North Korean intransigence?
Lots of good things could happen, and we could also have a bad solution.
Americans weigh in on what they want on health care.
They keep choosing an option that goes for bipartisan fixes.
This is the CBS World News Roundup Late Edition. I'm Dave Barrett. It's out there in the Pacific.
Everything about our little island is paradise. That's what Guam is all about.
But this week, residents there worry because North Korea may want to point its missiles their way.
We don't need this hatred.
This morning, President Trump tweeted about America's readiness should North Korea attack U.S. interests. He said the military solutions are locked and loaded. CBS's Bill Rakoff says the president spoke out later during the day at his New Jersey golf club.
The president was asked again about Guam and North Korea's threat.
I feel that they will be very safe. Believe me, they will be very safe. And if anything happens to Guam, there's going to be big, big trouble in North Korea.
But Mr. Trump said there's room to de-escalate tensions with North Korea.
We will see what happens. We think that lots of good things could happen, and we could also have a bad solution. But we think lots of good things can happen.
What would be that solution, sir?
I think you know the answer to that.
Referring to himself in the third person, the president said, quote, "Nobody loves a peaceful solution better than President Trump." Dave?
A short time ago, Mr. Trump said he'll be talking with China's leader tonight. There is a diplomatic back channel. North Korea expert Robert Carlin says thoughts and ideas between the administration and Pyongyang can be exchanged through North Korea's UN mission in New York City.
It's an important portal so both sides can pass important messages and can actually think about new approaches and maybe recommend them to their capitals.
Today in Guam, residents were told not to panic, but they were also told, for example, if a nuclear attack from North Korea took place, don't look at the detonation blast or you could be blinded. Stateside in Detroit, WWJ's Sandra McNeil says Some people think the threat of conflict isn't so far-fetched.
We've been very busy, unusually busy, I'd say.
That's Ben Orr, the manager of Joe's Army-Navy Surplus in suburban Detroit, who says over the past week to 10 days, he's been selling
a lot of water prep stuff, food, MREs, the military meals.
And he says there's been a substantial increase in the sale of something they usually don't sell a lot of, potassium iodide pills, which protect against radiation. Orr says a few people he's waited on have mentioned North Korea.
Some woman came in earlier and said that she had to get it because of Little Kim, which I thought was kind of funny. So I don't know if she was making a joke.
Sandra McNeil, CBS News, Detroit.
When the president spoke to reporters a short time ago, he mentioned the U.S. does have military options to deal with unrest in Venezuela. Pentagon says there are no orders calling for action there right now. Dow wound up the week with a 14-point gain. Now this.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans. Every day people ask me, Jay, did I miss out? Have the rates gone up? The answer is no. Rates are still low, and it's a perfect time to refinance your home, especially if your mortgage rate is higher than 4.25%. If you'd like to lower your interest rate and save thousands of dollars in interest without starting over on a new 30-year loan, a Quicken Loans Yorgage is what you're looking for. With our exclusive Yorgage, you can choose a term that works best for you, anywhere from 8 to 30 years. The rate today on an 8-year Yorgage is 3.25%, APR 3.75%. For 7 years in a row now, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation for customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. And for the 4th year in a row, they've also ranked us highest in the nation for mortgage servicing. Call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to QuickenLoans.com. That's 800-QUICKEN.
For J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSConsumerAccess.org number 3030.
What to do about health care after Congress failed to change it. The Kaiser Family Foundation's Molly Ann Brody says their poll shows most Americans don't simply want Obamacare killed off.
78% say that they should do what they can to make the law work, while just 17% say that they should do what they can to make the law fail so they can replace it later.
Presidential son-in-law Jared Kushner will go to the Mideast, along with negotiator Jason Greenblatt. Aaron David Miller, a Wilson Center Distinguished Fellow, says they will try to advance peace prospects between Israelis and Palestinians.
I don't care who you are, how much experience you have or you haven't had. If you're fair, if you listen well, and if you have in your pocket a set of positions that are designed to fairly and honestly, you could do all right.
It's the Friday edition. You are listening to the CBS World News Roundup.
3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's news now.
Chattanooga cops after a sharp-dressed man who they say robbed a convenience store in Lookout Valley early Thursday morning. Surveillance camera photos capture a black man wearing a blue or white dress shirt, black pants, robbing a Kangaroo Express on Browns Ferry Road. The police say they'd love to meet him and have a bit of a chat. Chattanooga cops say they found 2 stashes of cash and drugs in a location where a man accused of murder was staying. William Howard Wright, who's 18, is accused in a double murder case along with a 17-year-old juvenile, which 2 bodies were found inside of a cemetery. The police say they found an AR-15, drugged baggies, and drug paraphernalia, along with a large stash of cash where they believe one of the suspects was staying. Back in June, Desmond Clay was killed, and now in August, an arrest has been made. 20-year-old Desmond Trammell, charged with criminal homicide among other charges, accused of killing Clay on Wilcox Boulevard. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Any spotty showers will quickly diminish for your nighttime. Muggy overnight, low 70 to 72. For your weekend, not bad, partly sunny. A nice late afternoon shower storm popping up. Not as much so on Sunday, a little drier and warmer with highs into the upper 80s. McBriar Realty is now Real Living Southern Realty, serving the entire tri-state area. Find your dream home now with Real Living Southern Realty. For their complete listings and more, rlsouthernrealty.com. And I'm Source 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr. On Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
You're listening to AM 1240, 92.7 FM. Clutch with Keon Rose is the show. Nooga Radio is the station. NoogaRadio.com is our website where you can get access to all of our social media, as well as our programming. Just tune in and it'll play automatically there for you. I think it's simple. That is a plus for me. I like things to be less complicated. It tends to make life more efficient. So I have talked about previously, if everything goes right for every team in the SEC, what that looks like. But I have not talked about various nightmare scenarios, right? Like if things go horribly, horribly awry. Now, I don't want to do this for every SEC team because, I mean, there's some truly dismal situations out there. Like if things go horribly awry for Missouri, is it even worth mentioning? You know, I'm not trying to piss off the Missouri fans. If things go horribly sideways for Vandy, is it worth mentioning? Really? I don't think so. So when it comes to that, I'm going to bring up the nightmare scenarios of teams that I think could potentially contend for an SEC title. This includes the schools that are the favorites. These also include a couple of the dark horses. So things go horribly awry. Let's start with Alabama because it's the most boring of the scenarios. Alabama's expected to win all the time. Always. There's no season that we start here down in the SEC that has a Nick Saban-led team that we didn't expect to dominate in some form or fashion. So nightmare scenario for Alabama looks like Alabama loses 3 games and maybe doesn't make it to the title game, doesn't compete for a chance at the playoff. That's what that looks like for Alabama, right? Like that would be the worst possible thing that could happen to an Alabama fan. That's also likely to happen. So Alabama, that's a first world problems right there. That's 1%er problems right there. Which not to dismiss, those are still problems. I've mentioned many times. Fans don't like to go backwards on this stuff. But
wow. And man, he's done another clip on CNN saying, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to kick Gowdy's ass. Wow. Yeah, I bet, buddy. I'd like to see you in a ring with Gowdy. Take one look in Gowdy's eyes and tell he'd unscrew your little anti-American head. But here's the deal. Media will spin that and say, I call for violence. He's the one saying, we're getting ready to kill the president. Congratulations. Why is the fungus? Why is the mold? Why is the yeast taking over? What is going on? What has changed? Dr. Group, the Line Code TX.
The nightmare scenario for Auburn looks it's a big swing for Auburn, right? Auburn's best case scenario is Jarrett Stidham is everything that Gus Malzahn hoped and dreamed he would be. And the worst case scenario for Auburn is Jarrett Stidham is an absolute flop. So what does that actually manifest as? Well, with Auburn and in the SEC East, in the SEC West, with Auburn, Jarrett Stidham being a flop could look like 3 or 4 wins for Auburn, right? Like it could really look that bad because they're talented all over the place. They're talented in their running game. They're talented with their receivers. Their offensive line is pretty good. Their defense is very capable. Their linebackers, from what I understand, are playing very well in scrimmages and practices. Like, this is a school that has talent all over the place. And this has been true for years. They are just continually undone by lack of diversity in the quarterback position and lack of success at the quarterback position. And Auburn, to me, is the quintessential, when things go wrong, it could go really, really wrong, right? Like if Auburn rolls up on LSU and Jarrett Stidham's not good, or they have to run out Sean White, God forbid, then guess what? Auburn I don't know that they win more than 4 games. I don't. Because I don't think that this, like, if Auburn starts to slide, I can't imagine that it's very easy for a group of players and a group of guys to continue to believe in Gus Malzahn year after year after year when he's supposed to be this offensive wonder mind. Like, he's supposed to be the guy that understands how offenses work. He also has that bogus label slapped on him, quarterback whisperer. Like, nothing feels like more of a lie than that title, that a guy is a quarterback whisperer. That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't, there's no such thing as a quarterback whisperer. Right? Like, usually when a guy shows up and a quarterback plays well, the quarterback fits very well into his system, which is not being a quarterback whisperer. Essentially, being a quarterback whisperer would be a quarterback is bad. He is not good at playing football. You show up and suddenly the guy is good at playing football. And you can do this many times with many different quarterbacks. You are going to be good at getting these guys to play football. I don't know that such a thing exists, but you've heard the label tossed out there, and I've seen the label fail time and time again. So I see what's happening with Gus Malzahn and Auburn, and I hope that Jarrett Stidham is the answer to their question. Otherwise, the nightmare scenario for Auburn is like 4 wins, and they become the laughingstock of the SEC. The scenario for LSU is this. The scenario for LSU looks like they have everything right on defense, and offensively they just can't score, right? And it's another quarterback situation, but in this situation, their quarterback is Danny Etling, and we know what Danny Etling can give you. Danny Etling is a game manager. Danny Etling's not a bad quarterback. I know that people like to jump on him and act like he can't play the game. Danny Etling can play the game. Let's not act like the dude can't ball. But he is not a winner, okay? You're not down 14 going into the 4th quarter and looking to Danny Etling to bail you out. He can't do that. That's not what he does. He is the guy that keeps your offense on pace. He keeps you on track. He does not necessarily lose you ball games, but dude ain't winning you anything either. So when I say that Danny Etling can ball, I'm saying, look, Danny Etling last year made some good plays, made some decent throws, and he kept their offense on schedule, which is all that you can ask him to do, really. When they started the season, Danny Etling wasn't exactly expecting to play. They just weren't getting anything out of Brandon Harris. Then Danny Etling steps in and he does a pretty solid job. Yeah, LSU has got some room to grow. Their ceiling in the future can be higher. When they go out there and get themselves one of those quarterbacks that goes out there and can win you games, then yeah, they'll be a force to be reckoned with. They're not a force to be reckoned with now, but their defense and their other skill positions are so good that I think that they've got a chance to really win the division. Their nightmare scenario, though, is like 6 wins. You know what I mean? Like, things just go horribly awry for them, and they are just a 6-win team. Right? It's a very average situation, but I feel like people are expecting more than average from this LSU team, and it would be incredibly disappointing. I feel like that's what a bad situation at LSU looks like. A bad situation for the Tennessee Volunteers. Let's jump on over to the SEC East. The bad situation for the Tennessee Volunteers looks like 3-4 wins. You know, because here's the thing. I think the Vols win 8 games. Maybe I'm being too optimistic. I just look at their schedule. I see 8 wins in that schedule. It's possible. Now, we're going to need the very best coaching job out of Butch Jones, and that also requires that Quentin Dormady, to some level, prove that he can really take the reins of this position and make quarterbacks shine for Tennessee. But most people are expecting 6 or 7 games, which I do think is reasonable to expect. I think that that's the lower end of Tennessee. I think if Tennessee stumbles early, finds their footing late, loses the games that they lose, that they really ought not to lose, you know, like if they lose to Vanderbilt again or something like that, then yeah, they could wind up around 6 games. But for a nightmare scenario for Tennessee, right? The situation where people are talking about Butch Jones being on the hot seat, he's not on the hot seat. But if Butch Jones wins 3, maybe 4 games, that's a nightmare. That's really bad for them. And even when you consider the amount of talent that they've lost, they return enough starters on both sides of the ball. There's no reason for them to come out to the tune of four wins. The nightmare scenario for Tennessee is 3-4 wins, and their peak is probably about 8. So not bad, right? Kentucky nightmare scenario is I'd have to imagine 4 or 5 wins for Kentucky is a nightmare scenario, only because when you look at Kentucky's schedule is wide open enough and easy enough that Kentucky ought to win a lot of games. And their offense is good and potent enough that they ought to win a lot of games. And they have a long distance shot in the East. I mean, the Georgia-Florida thing is a conundrum. We can't figure out which of those schools is better. Most people believe it to be Florida. I personally believe it to be Georgia, but it could be neither. It could really just be Kentucky. Right? Now, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. But Kentucky's got the talent. They've got a good defense. It's a good defense. Not a great defense. It's a good defense. And offensively, they put up numbers. And last year, a lot of people looked down on them. Right? They were underdogs. They were dogs against Louisville. And they won. And Louisville can put up points on people. Kentucky went out there and outplayed the Heisman Trophy winning Lamar Jackson. That means a lot. It really does. So, yeah, I'm one of those people. Nightmare for Kentucky is really 6 wins. I mean, 6 is on the lower end of what you're expected to do. That is a gross lack of resource, or a gross misuse of resources, and a gross lack of fulfilling potential if somehow they only win 6 games. And I know we usually only expect Kentucky to win like 6 games, but man, their schedule has never looked this good before. Schedule's never looked this good. So yeah, Kentucky is a legitimate dark horse, and they think that they can make the college football playoff if you're to believe the signs that are in their training room. They've got these signs all up everywhere where the college football playoff has got 3 empty slots, and one of those slots is taken, and it's taken by Kentucky. Take that for whatever it is that you want to take that as, right? Georgia, nightmare scenario for Georgia is, again, 6 or 7 wins. When people are expecting you to win the East, okay, 7's not going to get it done. 8's probably not going to get it done this year. Like, Georgia needs to win like 9-10 games. And this is a squad that's talented enough to win 9 or 10 games. And Jacob Eason's going to have to grow, right? Like, a nightmare scenario is Jacob Eason doesn't develop at all. He looks exactly as he did last year, with some good moments, with some bad moments, and not a whole lot of growth in between. And a school that grossly underachieves and wins about 6 games, maybe 7. That's a nightmare if you're Georgia, because you're talented, right? You've got talent from the previous regime. You've got talent from this regime because of how well that they've recruited. And so at some point, people are not going to want your excuses as to why it is that you're not getting this done. Either you're good enough to get it done or you're not, because like no one is looking at a squad in the SEC East, in my opinion, more talented than Georgia's. Georgia, from top to bottom, is my favorite unit. Right? And I think they're more talented than Florida. I do. Florida's close, like they're right there. It's not a big gap. But I think that they're slightly more talented than the Gators. And if you're slightly more talented than the Gators, then you ought to win the East. You really should. Now, you know, Kentucky's a dark horse for a reason. Tennessee's a dark horse for a reason. You do have to play them both. You're Georgia. You do have a leg up on Tennessee in as much as you play Tennessee. No, actually, no, you don't have a leg up on Tennessee because you play Tennessee in Knoxville, right? So that's going to be a road game and a toughie for you. But look, you've got the talented team. You got to go out there and get it done. Nightmare scenario, really easy to accomplish for Georgia. If they don't win more than 7 games, it's a mess. Florida, your nightmare scenario. Also a team expected to win the SEC East, right? Between Georgia and Florida. I pick Florida. A lot of people I pick Georgia. A lot of people are picking Florida. I feel like it's not ridiculous either way. I don't think so. But here's the thing with Florida that I find to be fascinating, which is that they've never, this entire time they've been winning the East, they have never had a quarterback for an entire season on which they could fully rely on to win football games. And this is supposed to be the season for Florida that they finally got that straightened that out, where either they have Malik Zaire, who is a graduate transfer from Notre Dame for them, who they expect to be very good. And again, Malik Zaire is really good. Dude's talented. He's fast. He's strong. But we'll see how he fits with that offense. Or Felipe Franks, who is very much a young gun who shows up. If he plays year one, it would be impressive. And he's a guy that before Malik Zaire got there, people thought, well, Felipe Franks really could lead this football team. He's got a strong arm. He's very athletic. And the closest thing to a strong arm quarterback that Jim McElwain has had on that team since Will Greer? Possibly. It's the closest thing. So I'm very interested in seeing how Florida's season is going to go. Their nightmare scenario, again, is that whole 5-6 game stretch, that 5, 6, 7. If you don't win more than 7 games in your Florida, you should be disappointed in your team. If you don't win more than 7 games in your Georgia, you should be disappointed in your team. And I'm not counting the bowl game, okay? Talking regular season. If you don't win 5 games and you're Tennessee, you ought to be disappointed. And if you don't win 7 games and you're Kentucky, you ought to be disappointed. You're Alabama. If you don't win 10, you ought to be disappointed. Just plain and simple. You're Auburn, and you don't win. You don't win. 9. Disappointment. And I would say about the same for LSU. Though for Auburn, it's not a matter of if Auburn can reach 9. It's a matter of if Auburn reaches 9 or Auburn wins 3, right? It's like a gigantic M. Night Shyamalan plot twist of a season. Either everything's going to fall together for them, and this is what they wanted, and this is what they're going to finally look like with a quarterback who can run and throw the ball more accurately than any other quarterback that they've had, or this is going to be one of those situations where the quarterback doesn't work out. They might have to turn back to a familiar face, probably Sean White, and it's not going to be good. It's going to look dreadful. It's going to feel miserable. And Gus Malzahn might not make it through the season if they start off like they could only win 3 or 4 games, right? Because that's how it felt last year. This is why you don't want to have that quarterback whisperer reputation. I promise. Because when the quarterbacks aren't playing well, people are like, hey, dude, do your thing. Whisper. Isn't that what you do? Whisper quarterbacks? Whisper quarterbacks. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. So the 99th PGA Championship at Quail Hollow Club in Charlotte, North Carolina started yesterday. And I honestly couldn't have told you who was going to win. I was rooting for Jordan Spieth because I'd like him to beat Tiger's record of the youngest player to win all the majors. But I also know that that's incredibly difficult to do. I just like to sit down on a Sunday and be watching history. That's my preference, my very strong preference. The leaderboard of the PGA Championship includes Kevin Kisner, who I'd be lying to you if I said I'd ever heard his name before in my life, Hideki Matsuyama, Luis Oosthuizen, Jason Day, and Chris Stroud, all tied at 4 under par, with Kevin Kisner leading the bunch at 8 under par. I don't know if that's something that can necessarily be maintained, but it's something that is impressive when you consider that a lot of golfers are struggling, especially from the 16th to 18th hole. It is unlikely that Phil Mickelson will make the cut today. It's going to be his first PGA Championship that he's missed the cut for since 1995, which, to put that into perspective, I was 5 years old the last time Phil Mickelson missed the PGA Championship cut. Granted, this is the point that Phil Mickelson is in his career, right? Like, dude's getting up there in age, and like there is a track record that suggests that when you reach a certain age as a golfer, you do not have the benefit of winning a whole lot of majors. Like, guys just don't win majors. Like, golf is the one sport that you can keep playing forever and ever and ever, but there does become a gap where you just can't win anymore, right? We're seeing it with Phil. We're seeing it with Tiger. We're seeing it with a lot of guys who have had great careers, but you're just not able to put it together and really win. right? Ricky Fowler, by the way, is one of those guys that's hanging around on this leaderboard. But the 99th PGA Championship, I'm looking forward to another classic. We've had some very, very good moments in golf this year, and I'm looking forward to some more. You know, maybe someone surprises us tomorrow or Sunday. I don't know. Maybe Kevin Kisner hangs on and just wins the whole thing. Watch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. I mean, dude shot back-to-back 67s. How about that?
Chattanooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's news now.
Chattanooga cops after a sharp-dressed man who they say robbed a convenience store in Lookout Valley early Thursday morning. Surveillance camera photos capture a black man wearing a blue or white dress shirt, black pants, robbing a Kangaroo Express on Browns Ferry Road. The police say they'd love to meet him and have a bit of a chat. Chattanooga cops say they found 2 stashes of cash and drugs in a location where a man accused of murder was staying. William Howard Wright, who's 18, is accused in a double murder case along with a 17-year-old juvenile, in which 2 bodies were found inside of a cemetery. The police say they found an AR-15, drugged baggies, and drug paraphernalia, along with a large stash of cash where they believe one of the suspects was staying. Back in June, Desmond Clay was killed, and now in August, an arrest has been made. 20-year-old Desmond Trammell, charged with criminal homicide among other charges, accused of killing Clay on Wilcox Boulevard. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Any spotty showers will quickly the ministry or nighttime. Muggy overnight, low 70 to 72. For your weekend, not bad, partly sunny. A nice late afternoon shower storm popping up. Not as much, though, on Sunday. A little drier and warmer with highs into the upper 80s. McBriar Realty is now Real Living Southern Realty, serving the entire tri-state area. Find your dream home now with Real Living Southern Realty. For their complete listings and more, rlsouthernrealty.com. And I'm Source 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr. On Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Jim lost 84 pounds of fat in just 3 months. 84 pounds of fat in just 3 months without a single powdered meal or shake, no diet pills, no gimmicks. He is a cardiac nurse, and he knew that if he didn't do something, he would be the next one laying on the table getting stents in his heart. RSVP now to join us for our free health and wellness seminar at 240-440-1379. This will be our only seminar in Chattanooga, 240-440-1379.
Hi, this is Eric Pelton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. E.J. Pelton Company, 332-3339.
When you shop online for a weapon, you avoid the sales tax. But now you can buy local at Shooter Supply, and you'll do just as well, if not better. Here's how. 10% off of ammo and accessories, or 20% off of the handgun permit class, or you can get 20% off the range membership. You deduct the taxes online, and at Shooters, you do even better. And let Shooter's consignment program turn that rifle into cold, hard cash. Shooter Supply, Hickson. Shooters Supply, Hickson.
We have the best steak selection in town. The name of the business is Don's Meat Shop, and I'm Donnie Raines. Just ask for Donnie. I make over 20 different types of sausages. Most of them are great for grilling. We have the best selection, best quality. We have the hard-to-find items. Don's Meat Shop.
This is Thomas DeMoss with Keller Williams Realty. I am a realtor in Chattanooga. We list and sell homes, work with buyers, work with home sellers. I have been involved in real estate for over 10 years. My background is as a real estate investor. That is what I bring to the table, is that real estate investor mindset. My job is to help you sell your house for the most money, employing the best marketing strategy and walking you through what can be a rather stressful process. So we are encouraging people who are on the fence or even thought about selling their house to give us a call. There's no obligation. We're just here to kind of have a conversation and let people know what the process is like, what the market is like, what values they can expect to receive. We work with buyers as well. I also have a buyer's agent that works exclusively with my buyers because we want to give our clients as much attention as we can. My cell phone number is 423-364-0028. Our website is northriverpropertygroup.com. That's northriverpropertygroup.com. We'd love for you guys to call us.
Hi, I'm David Crockett, and I'm here with David Tulis, and we're having a little discussion over who's the number one Nooga centrist. If you want to keep up with free market ideas, then read Nooganomics.com. David Tulis, the blogger with the biggest pen.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree. Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM, and 95.3 HD4. News, talk, sports. Nooga Radio.
You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Yes. I was watching during the break, and I'll give you my NFL preseason observations from NFL preseason week 1. Observations that I will acknowledge I put together by watching the highlights of the NFL preseason because, as I mentioned before, I do not watch most of the NFL preseason. Because, look, I'm excited that football's back just as much as the next person, but it doesn't mean anything. I don't sit down and watch meaningless stuff. I don't watch bad games. Like, if I know something's going to be terrible, I don't sit down and plan to watch terrible. I have too much respect for my time to sit down and just watch terrible on purpose. So, no, I don't sit down and watch bad games. And the preseason's not bad, but it's... Come on. I have too much respect for my time to sit down and watch exhibition games that do not matter, that are essentially practice, right? Like, these guys are getting their first taste of full contact football for the first time in months. I like for that to just be what it is. Okay? You can get everything you need to know about the NFL preseason from highlights. I honestly believe this. I don't think that's true of the regular season, but the preseason, absolutely. But during the break, though, and I'm not going to spend too much time on it because I feel like I've made myself abundantly clear. But I was watching Conor McGregor's media workout, and he already looks tired and slow. And I don't understand how that's possible. Floyd's was yesterday. I watched Floyd's. Floyd looks like Floyd still. He can tell us that he's old and that he's lost a step, but the fact of the matter is, he is a championship-level boxer and has been a championship-level boxer for 2 decades. There has been no sign of erosion on the guy whatsoever. Yes, throughout his career, he's lost punching power, right? Floyd used to knock people out. You forget, Floyd used to put his hands on folks, and they used to go down. It's been about 10 years since Floyd really knocked out a guy that wasn't a cheap shot. Right, he did have that one fight that was a cheap shot where there was a headbutt and the guy went over to apologize and Floyd just knocked him out. Which, you know, the boxing rules say defend yourself at all times. So Floyd was in the right there. It was just a jerkish thing to do. He could have just tapped gloves with the dude and kept on boxing. But no, Floyd went for the knockout. That was that. But Floyd hasn't really knocked out an opponent trying to hide himself from Floyd in about a decade. It's been about that long. So it's not like Floyd's skills have stayed fresh in regards to his power. But you don't have to win a boxing match with just power. Floyd hasn't won a boxing match with just power in years. It's that Floyd is going to land more punches than you. He's going to be more active than you. And you're not going to be able to touch him with a punch that's clean. Conor's not going to touch Floyd. Listen to me. Conor McGregor will not land a single punch on Floyd Mayweather. Not anything that could be defined as a clean punch. Pacquiao threw more punches than any human being I've seen throw punches at Floyd and did not connect on but like 5 of them in 12 rounds of work. Okay? And that is Manny Pacquiao, which, sure, has Manny Pacquiao declined and faded? Yes. But that was still a capable Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao now, I don't think could touch him at all. But Pacquiao then, that was still a reasonable Manny Pacquiao. And Conor McGregor is simply not aggressive enough of a fighter. Conor McGregor is a counter-puncher too. And so I have said this many times, and I'm making myself abundantly clear. If you pay for this fight, you are a sucker. and I was watching Conor do his media day workout. You know, the workout that you have to do in front of people with cameras. And he looked tired and he looked slow. Maybe he's just putting this all on, right? Like maybe he's just doing this to try and bait Floyd into a false sense of security. But the fact of the matter is, you're trying to sell us that you have an opportunity to win this fight. Baiting Floyd is the least of your worries if we're not going to sit down and watch. And the tickets for this fight, which, by the way, are upwards of $2,000, $2,500, are not selling well because nobody wants $2,500 for a guaranteed knockout. No one wants to pay that kind of money. And Conor's not doing a very good job on selling us the fact that he can win this fight because he can't win this fight. Right? I'm saying it would be worth it for the opportunity to see if Conor could even touch Floyd. He can't. Right? If he thinks that this is how he can just become aggressive and run at Floyd. And do what? And what happens if Floyd just clinches you? Which happens in boxing and gets to be frustrating for people. What if he just clinches you? Right? And then the ref has to come break you up. And what if he just plays Huggy Bear for 12 rounds? Gets his shots in at you and you don't get any shots into him? That's possible. Like, you have to have a better strategy than I'm the MMA fighter, so I'm just going to run at you. This is going to be a bad fight. This is going to be a bad fight in every sense of the word bad. And really not a fight in any sense of the word fight. He looks lethargic and slow already. Right? Like when you look at the losses that Conor has had in the UFC, they have come from the fact that fights have gone longer than he thought that they were going to go. And he got gassed, and he got tired, and he got winded. Boxing is not the sport where you can get winded. I knew a guy who worked on the HBO 24/7 crew, which they do the behind the scenes of the boxing camps and training. And the HBO 24/7 crew said that they could always tell when they knew a guy was going to win in a boxing match based on how hard someone was working. Like when you follow a guy around with cameras forever, you can tell who's going to win. The guy with the better conditioning exercise and training and work usually won the fight. The fact that Conor looks gassed and winded at a media training session, okay? This is not you going 1,000%, but he looks tired already now. Do you think this is going to get better in 2 weeks? I don't. I do not have that much faith. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. So let me give you my preseason observations from the highlights that I have watched from the preseason, because I feel like that's all you need to know things about the preseason. But I have been impressed by Mitchell Trubisky, a guy who I've been up and down on, right? The roller coaster for me and Mitchell Trubisky has been a very up and down roller coaster this entire time, in large part because I believe that Mitchell Trubisky is a very talented quarterback, right? Like, I believe he's good. I believe he's accurate. I buy guys who are accurate. I don't blame the Bears for wanting to go after a guy who is accurate. But I have some red flags with Mr. Trubisky. One of the red flags is that he just hasn't played that many games. My other one of the red flags is just the Bears. They look incompetent in the way that they jumped up to draft Mitchell Trubisky. They didn't have to jump up. They had the number 3 pick. They jumped up to 2 to get him. There wasn't anybody who was going to take their guy between them. And I thought that didn't make any sense. Also, they signed Mike Glennon to a decently large contract, which to me doesn't make any sense. If you believe that Mitch Trubisky was going to be your guy for the future, the signing of Mike Glennon is not a thing that particularly works out. Right? Doesn't. If you honestly thought that Mitch Trubisky was going to be your quarterback for the future, and you thought so highly that you jumped up to grab him in the draft, I find it very interesting that you went ahead and you signed Mike Glennon anyway. And Chicago, just the way that they operated throughout the entire offseason, appeared to be some kind of team with no plan. Now, if Trubisky works out, then we will forgive them instantly for their round of incompetence. But if he doesn't work out, then now we've got problems. But looking at the highlights, Trubisky could very much work out, right? Now, again, I am one of those people, I don't believe that we can prove that you're great in the preseason. I just don't. I've seen enough guys look great in the preseason and then regress during an actual season. especially at the quarterback position, which is just tough to get right generally. And the preseason, you don't get the best defenses from a team, right? Like, you don't get their most complicated looks. You don't get their tricks. You don't get their traps. You don't get any of that stuff. You're basically just getting a shell defense that you can pick apart if you are a pretty good player. And Mitchell Trubisky looks like a pretty good player. Granted, they made the offense very simple for Trubisky. There's a lot of quarterback rollouts. There was a lot of plays where he had one or two reads to make. Okay, look off the safety, turn to your right, turn to your second option. It wasn't a whole long set of progressions that he had to go through. The thing that makes Mitch Trubisky look very capable in my eyes is, one, when he throws the ball flies off his hand, right? I mean, it just jumps off. He looks the part when he throws the ball. I mean, you've seen guys where they throw the ball and it struggles to get there. Nah, this is a strong arm kid. He can really spin the rock. So that already looks good for him on that count. The other part that looks really good to me is accuracy. Trubisky puts the ball where he wants to every time he throws the ball. If he wants to put it high where only his guy can get it, he puts it there. If he wants to put it low where only his guy can get it, down at his knees, I mean, he puts it there. And he puts it on him in such a way you almost can't help but to catch the football. I think that's very impressive. So Mitch Trubisky impressed me. Christian McCaffrey, who played in that game against Deshaun Watson on Wednesday, but I didn't see the McCaffrey highlights. I only watched the Watson highlights previously. Christian McCaffrey, very impressive. Very fast, everything that I thought that he would be. I didn't think that he looked very impressive going between the tackles. That's something that they're going to have to get used to him doing. I think that they're going to have to use some kind of like zone blocking scheme to give him more holes to work with. Because Christian McCaffrey's more deadly in space, right? He's more Reggie Bush than anybody that I've seen. He's very deadly in space. And what you're trying to do with McCaffrey is get him the ball where there's a one-on-one matchup with somebody who he can make look foolish. Because he had a couple of those opportunities, and he achieved a few of them. He was able to get some runs that looked really good and promising, but he wasn't able to break them wide open. And I imagine over the course of an NFL season, he's going to break a few of those runs. But I think that that's a big pickup for the Panthers. I really like the way the Christian McCaffrey looked for them. Everything is advertised. Speaking of a running back whose everything is advertised, Leonard Fournette in the Jags preseason game, I watched all of his snaps. The NFL, by the way, does a great job. NFL.com, their YouTube channel, a lot of the big names, they put all of their snaps. So I watched every Leonard Fournette snap, every Mitchell Trubisky throw, everything from about every rookie player. And every Leonard Fournette snap was truly horrifying to realize that Leonard Fournette has been this big and this strong his entire college career and could not play in the NFL before this. He is hard to tackle. He was running through the Patriots defense, and there were not many answers for Leonard Fournette. Now, Leonard Fournette did not break off the big run, but he had some 5, 6, 7-yard runs that were particularly punishing. And in the red zone, I expect the Jaguars to improve a lot, because in the red zone, yeah, that Leonard Fournette's a very difficult guy to bring down. And I mean difficult. I don't know what you do for him. I don't. There were Patriots players bouncing off of Leonard Fournette like bullets bounce off of Superman. He was not really struggling to push through these guys. And I have just a reason to believe, just watching that game, that there's another gear there. There's another level that Leonard Fournette can actually reach. And I'm not entirely certain that anybody in the NFL is ready for that, right? Boy, when we say Leonard Fournette is Adrian Peterson-esque, whew. Yeah, I agree. Jared Goff, to me, Jared Goff looked pretty good. I called Jared Goff trash at the end of last season. I take that back, by the way. That was a very reactionary thing to say, but I'm a reactionary person. I am a fan, okay? I am a fan, and I watched Jared Goff a couple of his games, and he looked bad. But after rewatching the Rams stuff this last, I watched the All or Nothing documentary that the NFL put out on the Rams on Amazon. And I don't know who could have played very well behind that offensive line. But yeah, no, Jared Goff doing things, and the Rams trying their best to get him some weapons, right? They drafted Cooper Kupp, who's a guy that a lot of people liked. They were very high on. And they made a trade for Sammy Watkins today. So Sammy Watkins gives Jared Goff another weapon to throw the ball to. Sammy Watkins also has to be incredibly grateful. No disrespect to Tyrod Taylor, but Tyrod Taylor's not as good a thrower of the football. Jared Goff can sling it. And I imagine as he gets more comfortable in his offense, and as Sean McVay, who is the youngest head coach in the history of modern football, as Sean McVay gets more into his system with them, he's good, man. I believe in McVay. I'm all on the McVay hype train. But Sean McVay, brilliant guy. That offense is going to give us a lot of looks that we've never seen the Rams give us because Jeff Fisher just wasn't that kind of guy. Yeah, I'm excited about the Rams, actually. And I never thought I'd say those words in the modern history of my life, but I'm actually excited to watch the Rams this season. I think it's a really good trade. I don't know what they had to give up to get Watkins, but that is a really good trade to get their young quarterback another weapon. There were some other question marks concerning the Cleveland Browns. I watched Deshaun Kaiser, all of his highlights. Kaiser looks like what we thought Kaiser was going to look like. Dude's rough, but he came out of college rough. Like, it's not like this is shocking in any particular kind of way. Here's the thing that's interesting to note about Deshaun Kaiser. Deshaun Kaiser has got a very strong arm, right? There were some passes that he fit into windows that I did not think that he could fit the ball into. I'm like, oh no, Deshaun, you're throwing the ball into double coverage. And he did throw the ball into double coverage. And you know what happened? The ball got between both defenders. And maybe, during the NFL season and you start to play some better and better defenses, and as teams start to realize what you are, you don't maybe fit those passes into those windows. It's possible. I hear that. That makes sense. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. You can't teach that. Like, when a guy's got a strong arm, you can't teach that. Like, the thing that I noted about the Texans, like when I was watching them, is Deshaun Watson can really push the ball upfield in a way that I saw Tom Savage play last year with the Texans. And I like Tom Savage's mind. I do not like Tom Savage's arm. I thought that there were some throws towards the sideline that struggled to get to the sideline. You want a guy that can really put it out there. Tom Savage is a guy that when we say the old cliche, he can make all the throws, Tom Savage cannot make all the throws, right? Tom Savage struggles throwing out routes. It's a hard throw to make. I get it. Guys like Deshaun Watson, like this rookie class of quarterbacks to me is interesting just based on watching them in the preseason. Okay, I'm not making any declarations about anybody in particular. But this rookie class of quarterbacks, this was supposed to be a draft that was weak in quarterbacks. And maybe these guys don't all pan out. There's not enough information to say. But I remember saying before, I don't think these guys are as bad as people are making them out to be. I like Deshaun Watson. He's smart. He's picked up that Texans offense pretty quickly. Mitchell Trubisky, highly accurate. Patrick Mahomes, strong arm. And under the tutelage of Andy Reid, he's going to be fine. Andy Reid is really good at getting guys that are unconventional but have a few strengths, in which, in the case of Mahomes, is his mobility and his arm strength. Andy Reid is really good at getting the best out of those guys. See Donovan McNabb, right? Like, Donovan McNabb was a great football player, but in large part because Andy Reid did a good job of maximizing the strengths of Donovan McNabb. So you see that, and I'm seeing a lot out of Deshaun Kaiser that holds a lot of promise. And I'm going, look, this class of quarterbacks could be a very good class of quarterbacks, which teaches us the lesson that we should have known about football all along, which is that you cannot predict an NFL quarterback's trajectory. We're really bad at figuring out when guys are good at playing football because we were not good at figuring out when Russell Wilson was good, and we were not good at figuring out when Dak Prescott was good, and we were not figuring out when Brock Osweiler wasn't. And how many times are we going to do this song and dance? Next year, we're talking about the quarterback class being some of the best we've ever seen and all of this good stuff, and it's great. Like, we probably are seeing a great class, right? Like with Josh Rosen and Sam Darnold, all of those guys are fantastic, but like I just have trouble believing that somehow we're aware of how good these guys are going to be a year out when we're not even correct about the draft class that just happened. Right? Like, everyone was down on all of these guys. And I'm not saying that none of these guys had red flags. Right? I thought Deshaun Watson had the least. But Patrick Mahomes had his red flags. He's a bit of a gunslinger, hard to control, doesn't necessarily think things through before he throws the ball, relies too much on his arm strength, has bad footwork. Red flags everywhere. Deshaun Kaiser is rough in every way, right? That doesn't necessarily pick up the nuances of reading a defense. He's fairly mobile and his arm is fairly strong, but he gambles a lot. Mitch Trubisky didn't play in a ton of games. There were red flags everywhere. But people took those red flags to mean it's a fact that this is a weak quarterback draft class. And I didn't think that was true. And I still don't think that it's true. A lot of people said it, but that didn't make it so. This is why I was saying yesterday, and I think it's worth repeating, defend yourself against narratives, right? When someone says something is true, when the media says something is true, do some research. Look into it your own self. And make sure you got it right. It's worth doing. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Thank you for joining me today, making me just a small part of your day. You know that I appreciate each and every one of you. Remember, folks, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch. I'll see you all on Monday.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
You've been in a wreck.
756-6400.
You've been wrongfully fired.
756-6400.
A turkey is suing you out of the blue.
756-6400.
Confused about a business startup?
756-6400.
That's the number for you. 756-6400. Right here, right now, Chattanooga. Call now. Top flight legal help awaits. Get biz advice now. Representation to fight for your right. What are you waiting for? That's 756-6400. Don't sit on your rights. You've got remedies. Turn your tragedy into cash. You've got the solution from estate planning all the way to probate. Act now. Top attorneys in Chattanooga are waiting to help you get relief. Act now. No out of pocket. You don't pay a dime until we win, so win with us.
756-6400.
Call now. Top flight legal help awaits. What are you waiting for? That's 756-6400. Turn your tragedy into cash. Act now. No out of pocket. You don't pay a dime until we win, so win with us.
756-6400.
756-6400.
I'm Thomas DeMoss, and we've got the cash. We will buy your house today. Need to sell your house? We want to buy your house, and we have the cash to do it. Call me now, 423-834-7321. That's 423-834-7321. We've been buying houses in the Chattanooga market for 10 years. We are local, and we can help. There's no obligations, only solutions. iBuyChattanoogaHouses.com. I'm Thomas DeMoss, and we've got the cash.
Does your business have enough clients? Are you confused about how to stand out in today's saturated social media market? Do you feel lost trying to navigate the maze of marketing channels which are necessary in today's marketplace? Are you fed up with spending your time and money on employees who don't perform and marketing strategies that don't produce? Then you need Cindy's Choice. Cindy will solve your marketing problems with her innovative shared marketing management concept that will allow your business to have the benefits of a full-time employee that is actually out building relationships in the community on behalf of your brand. Cindy's low monthly rate includes advertising, employee management, public relations, and creative marketing strategies that produce. Cindy can bring this all to you at a rate lower than most advertising campaigns and for much less than the cost of hiring a marketing employee. Cindy's Choice is your trusted source, and Cindy will manage it all for you.
Hi, I'm Cindy. I focus on the prospects so you can focus on the projects. Call me at 423-661-4445. That's 423-661-4445. So you can become Cindy's Choice.
And now to our reporter in the field.
We asked Ray at Ray's Plumbing what's important for homeowners to know.
Some field line systems can cost upwards of $10,000. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road. I would definitely recommend everybody with a septic that is not on county or city sewer to have an inspection done by a qualified professional. It'd be great if nobody did inspections on them for all plumbing companies. That's what we do to make a living. Not to scare anyone, but it should be in the back of your mind. The danger is the field lines failing and costing thousands upon thousands of dollars and tearing your yard up. By preventative maintenance, you're saving yourself a large headache that may displace yourself and your family. That happens more often than you think. The waste is designed to stay in the tank, and that waste will build up over time. Even with treatment, we have to help that waste break down. Ultimately, preventative maintenance is the key that will keep you from spending $5,000 to $10,000 on replacing your septic system. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road.
Call Ray at Ray's Plumbing, 421-6341, 421-6341.
Hi, this is Nadia behind the green door. You've had ice cream and you've had shaved ice, but have you had snow cream? It is amazing. It's light, airy, fruity snowflakes melting on your tongue. You need to come and see us. Highway 58, Green Door next to Hardee's.
My name is Trevor Atchley. I'm an attorney here with the law firm McCoon, Williams, Atchley, and Stanley. We have a show on Nooga Radio called Legal Bites, where we discuss legal topics of interest to our listeners: estate planning, business formation, and business transactions. Legal Bites, 11 a.m. on Wednesday.